Now, the Minister of Agriculture and Land Reform, Thoko Didiza, today is going to be tabling a budget of 17.3 billion rand to help support food security. Today also marks the signing of the much-anticipated Agriculture Agro-Processing Master Plan. The Minister is joining us now on eNCA just before she tables this budget, I understand, this afternoon. Ma'am, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. Can I first begin here? Have you signed the master plan?
Yes, we have. We did sign the master plan, and almost all the partners did sign. Labour gave its support. There are just one or two issues that they want cleared with the social partners, and they will be signing.
What's the importance of this master plan?
The importance of this master plan is that it's assisting us as a sector to actually agree on a number of issues that we need to address in order to grow this sector, make it inclusive, ensure that we increase our capacity to produce and be able to trade.
Will rural women benefit from this master plan?
Rural women, women in general, young men and women who are interested in agriculture actually will benefit from the sector. One of the things that we've done, we've actually had the research conducted by PFAB and CRED, who really enabled us to understand how big is the sector, what are the inefficiencies that are there, how not inclusive it is, by ensuring us to look at the market share of emerging and black farmers in the sector, for instance, so that we can move from a common baseline when we say these are the things that we need to do to support emerging farmers in this sector. It's also looking at the conditions of work for farm workers and how that can be improved. One of the issues, for instance, that workers want us to deal with, working together with the Minister of Social Development and Labour, it's how do we address the issues of social protection for workers? How do we strengthen the issue of inspection in farms? These are the areas that they are concerned about. Issues of evictions and how those are, conducted, even if legal. They are done in such a manner that we follow due process. These are the matters which Labour actually want to see in that master plan. And I must say to you that Labour is an important element and a critical one too in the success of the agricultural sector. For us, it's natural resources, it's people and money that, and land that actually is a deal breaker. On the other hand, black farmers want us to deal with the issues of water and accessibility to new entrants. So this is the matter that we'll be engaging also with Ministry of Water Affairs to make sure that we actually reform the water sector in support of emerging farmers.
Yeah, and I think there'll be other types of infrastructure which will be critical for the performance of the agricultural sector that you would all be concerned about.
Yes, rural infrastructure, for instance, for farmers, not only black farmers, but all farmers in our country, on and off farm infrastructure is very critical. We've seen with the rains that we've had, particularly if you look at the Highveld, but I would dare say across the country, the situation in KZN have actually brought to the surface the importance of infrastructure for agricultural industry in our country. So it's important that we also look at those infrastructure and how they actually support agriculture, particularly in rural communities.
Yeah. Minister, are you confident that your master plan, I've done an interview recently with somebody in the sugar industry about the sugar master plan. I think there's a poultry master plan. Now you've got this agriculture and agro-processing master plan. Are you confident that you can use it to attract more investment into agriculture in South Africa?
I am confident. It's important for us to appreciate that this agriculture agro-processing master plan, its precursor was actually the poultry and sugar master plan, which indeed were brought to the fore because of the challenges that the sugar industry was facing as well as the poultry industry, particularly where there had been more imports that were destabilizing local production. So we had to sit down both with importers, with our producers, also look at other subsector of the industry, such as the grain industry, which is a critical component in the animal feed and poultry feed in particular, and say to us, how do we ensure that we grow the sector, but in a manner that is inclusive, it brings in those who are historically disadvantaged, and commit to what type of support we need to give. We then thereafter, between myself and Minister of Trade and Industry, launched an agri fund where it's in a blended form. Part of the fund is a grant and part is loan. And we've already started to dispense that money. 6 poultry producers actually have benefited, and 3 of those are women. Collectively amongst them, they are now producing 1.9 million birds per cycle. So you can tell that the interventions that have been made have not just, targeted the areas that, established commercial sector have already been in. It's how to actually catalyze those who are coming into the industry to actually perform successfully.
Yeah, to exploit new opportunities and new gaps. But on the master plan, because I need to ask you still about the budget overall before we let you go, Minister. I know you've got a very busy schedule ahead of you. But on the master plan, you yourself said when we started this interview that not everybody has signed the agriculture and agro-processing master plan. There are some dissenting voices. There has been some criticisms, and there are those who are not yet signed it, as you've said. They are also concerned about the implementation. People want to see concrete timelines of implementation and delivery. Will this happen?
It will happen. I was using the poultry master plan as an indication of precisely that implementation. Last week, I was in Mkuze, in KwaZulu-Natal, where we were actually opening up a transloading facility, which is cutting the cost of transport for sugarcane farmers in Jozini, Makhathini Flat. That critical intervention, which has been delivered as a result of government, industry, and farmers coming together, both in terms of resources and planning of what needs to happen, has actually ensured that more farmers from Makhathini Flat can now see their cane going into the mill much cheaper than it was before. That's one of the interventions that has been part of the master plan. Even on this one, it's not going to be just a paper that we agreed to, but we will implement. And the critical part is that it's a collective effort. So it's not government or industry alone or workers alone. All of us are committed in making this plan succeed.
Okay, finally and very briefly, Minister, as we conclude, 17.3 billion rand budget, partly for food security. What are the other key elements of your budget this year?
Well, if you look at the 17.3 billion rands of our budget, majority of that budget are transferred to provinces as part of supporting iLima Litsima program, which really deals with food security in the main, where we support farmers with inputs. The comprehensive agricultural support program, that is where we actually give critical infrastructure to farmers in order for them to farm productively, such as issues of fencing or storage facility or water facility, for instance. And then we've got other transfers that goes to provinces for supporting extension services, which is very critical in terms of enabling farmers with knowledge, critical interventions on how they choose what they need to plant and how they do so. The other transfers go to the various entities, such as the Ondersteport Biological Products, the Agricultural Research Council. It also goes to the Commission, and part of the money that remains in the national budget will go to interventions such as land development support, land acquisition, for instance, in order to make sure that we release the land to those who need it.
Thank you very much, Minister Thoko Didiza. Good luck with your budget vote shortly in Parliament this afternoon. That's the Minister of Agriculture and Land Reform, Thoko Didiza, just sharing with us some of the highlights of her budget, 17.3 billion rand budget for the upcoming financial year to the end of March 2023. She's going to be presenting it in Parliament, talking about the budget vote at about 4:30 this afternoon.